perfect. For your Colombian and Latin American audience, what is Honey SoundSystem and how it all began?
Honey SoundSystem is a DJ music collective from San Francisco. We're celebrating 10 years this year. It is been as big as 6 people. It right now is 4 members, and we all share duties in various ways. We run record labels, we make music, do remixes, but we're most known for our parties. And we were doing a weekly party every Sunday night for 5.5 years, which is kind of what became famous for us around the world. Lots of people coming to visit and needing something to do on a Sunday night in San Francisco, and they came to Honey. And in the end, we've booked and been booked by many acts. And these days, we're traveling the world, playing our DJ sets for places we've always wanted to.
Honey SoundSystem was born in San Francisco, specifically in Castro, which is probably the most popular gay neighborhood in the world. There, you became a household name and people went crazy for your parties. When you started planning this concept outside San Francisco and presented it in different places abroad, how was that taken? Did it feel like a second coming out?
Basically, when we started in the Castro at the transfer, that was sort of our launch pad, but then we ended up throwing parties in Soma at Club Rawhide, and then expanding to our weekly parties on Sundays at Paradise Lounge and then Holy Cow. And basically we started billing our party as the Uncastro because we were programming a lot of music that wasn't very mainstream or very top 40 or very cliche for like the Castro. And eventually that got us a lot of recognition that we were able to start throwing parties outside of San Francisco, with the highlight being our Generators party in Chicago, where we were able to curate the space at the Smart Bar and also bring in talented designers and other artists to help us with presenting this sort of vibe to the Chicago audience.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to say that there's always a gayborhood in every city, and the Castro is kind of our gayborhood, and in many ways, you know, we respect it and love it, and some of the best disco music that we've been attached to for even our label and over the years came from the Castro and that vibe. But like what Robert was saying, the Uncastro is kind of a definition for every city when you go to the gayborhood and all you hear is Rihanna remixes or Donna Summer. And we were trying to like create a space that could do something a little bit different than that.
Honey SoundSystem is celebrating 10 years after its creation. What has been the greatest highlight of the decade as a collective? And of course, insert the craziest party to date.
So yeah, one of the craziest parties that we've thrown is probably the underground we threw at Counterpulse in the Tenderloin. It was on Turk, and it was sort of they were going through renovations, so we sort of kind of just talked to the owners and basically just convinced them to let us throw a party where we invited Mike Servito, and we had this really insane artist, Brian Quick, who came in and did this crazy, like very raunchy mural as a backdrop for the DJ booth.
Yeah, because the space was raw, so
it was pretty raw.
They were basically like you can do anything, and it used to be an old porn theater, yes. A straight porn theater in the 80s, maybe 70s and 80s.
Like the 80s or 70s,
yeah.
But we
still had the theater too.
So we set up a theater we set up a screening of some porn videos. Was it? What porn videos were they?
I think it was the Cali.
It was the Cali
porn.
Yes, the Cali porn. And basically, all the theater seats were still there, and then people can walk up and down these like really narrow stairs to get to the party.
Kind of crazy.
But it really like took off, and it was like
it really was the first time in a long time we've done that too, right?
Fire emergency potential,
but yeah, it was like the first time in a while we were able to do. San Francisco had kind of a lockdown on warehouses and undergrounds, and specifically the gay scene doesn't get to do them very often, and this just felt super right.
Yeah, I mean, because we spent all this time like bringing up, like kind of activating this crowd from our beginning to where we got to at Counterpulse, that I think it just made more sense to just like have a really insane party with everyone who's really into this music and into that kind of underground feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why it's a good answer for the 10-year thing, because it was like we had spent all like 10 years like doing things all over San Francisco, and then but not really having a lot of opportunities to throw undergrounds. And like this one came by and it was like a queer run space, and like we knew we could do it and make it safe, and it was actually like in the center of the city where we've always wanted to do a party. And the funniest part about that night was, of course, we had to bring our own sound, and we used a sound engineer that's this amazing dude. He always goes over the top for us in the worst situations. But this was a basement space, and it had two tiny, narrow like stairwells, and we brought this giant system down it. And getting it down, like we almost killed one of the guys. Like, and so when it got down there, we just didn't even think about getting it out. You know, we were just so happy it was down there. And then the party went off. It was so good. You know, super raw. And then a day later, we were like, oh shit, we have to get this system out. Like getting it up the stairs, it took like 6 or 8 hours. I'm pretty sure I broke a finger. It was nuts, but it was totally worth it. But it was also just like a give and take for us. Like this party was only gonna happen with.
I mean, we also had to like clean up, and it was just like pretty filthy, raunchy.
Filthy.
I mean, imagine a space with just a few bathrooms.
Right.
2 bathrooms.
Oh yeah.
You can imagine.
And they were shooting that show called Looking. HBO was shooting Looking at the time, and the guys from Looking came because they heard about the party was happening. And they all had to pay, and they all were like excited to be there. But I remember hearing like one of the hot ones was at the front, and I was like, I can't get up there. I can't help them. I don't even think I saw them, but we had like Hollywood.
There were a lot of spottings.
Yeah, there were some spottings. Anyway.
How is the creative process and roles inside the Honey SoundSystem family?
That's an easy one for us. I mean, we are a collective, and you know, everybody has their own role over the past 10 years, but I think it's everybody's personality that kind of rules in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of do a lot of soundboarding. We have meetings. We also like when we're having our regular Sunday parties, one of our moments where we're just working as a collective is just decorating the space and making it look not like it usually does. But
staple guns, push pins. Those were actually, I think that's one of the more interesting parts of what we do is pushing the boundaries of things that we aren't comfortable doing, and I think physically working with our hands and doing art projects and stuff like that versus DJing, making music, being archivists about music. When we have to do some of those other things, that's I think when we come together and learn new things.
Yeah, and it's almost like working on building muscle memory or something, because every single week you want to do something different with the space. So
totally.
It's always a different way of collaborating with each other when we're trying to dress it up.
Yeah, or when someone finds something like a new piece of equipment, like when Robert found his video synthesizer, and then even though it was his synthesizer and he knew how to use it when he brought it in, it became like a weekly thing. We hooked it up to the sound system, and someone learned how to use a projector for the first time in the crew, and then we all learned how to use the synthesizer together, and someone was sick for a party, so someone else had to run that. And there were all these different examples of how we each had to all learn the same skills but potentially bring something different to it.
This is your first time in Colombia, and you're playing at Video Club, which is for us the most inclusive club in Bogotá. Actually, even more inclusive than most of the gay clubs. What are your expectations with the Colombian crowd?
Well, we sort of visited the club yesterday, and we kind of got a taste of how inclusive it was, because we were downstairs listening to
and
reggaeton, and we saw guys all
hanging out,
dry humping each other.
Yeah.
And, it was really special. We had so much fun. It was just it was
It's a straight club, but it is now straight friendly. We say now straight friendly because yes, we are taking over the world.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to be here. With sometimes we don't get to come to a city and spend some time to see it and soak it in, but I think we're super excited about playing tonight because we got to see Bogotá and really get to see how the city is open to a lot of different things, but also some of the similarities to some of our favorite cities. So we're excited. I mean, we're also excited to see a space so well thought out be inclusive. That's fucking tight.
Yeah. You guys are establishing a precedent with your sexually charged yet freedom-driven parties, and for the new generations of the LGBT community, you are becoming this kind of religious figure for connection and protection in the parties, of course. Did you see all this coming when you first started as the collective?
I think we kind of caught on early on that, there was some potential for some risky activity when we had our first huge pride party at Holy Cow, and there were some people who were kind of overdoing it, and we had to help them get out of the club, and it kind of sort of set a tone for us that our party isn't really that kind of party where you come in and you're taking G or whatever, and just doing whatever. I think we sort of always try and set some sort of decorum for how you should behave, while we are very permissive with sexual activity,
Right.
we don't want people to just lose their mind and just do something that they would regret the next day.
I think that we started to evolve when we realized what we needed to do with our crowd, and we for example, as soon as we realized that we could have a back room at our party when we were doing our weekly, we made sure to do it in a way where it was in a hallway, so you knew that people were going to be walking in and out. It wasn't an area that was going to completely be stress-free for someone to be doing that. We also realized that we needed to be giving away free water, and we needed to be doing cheap drinks, and we needed to be opening up the field of our events to all different kinds of people, and making sure that there was a cheap way to get into the event. All of these things that kind of other promoters might do, but we were doing it all at once, all at the same time. And I think in many ways we were realizing that we could reward people to come to our event, but in doing so and giving them all of these things that they wanted, we also had an opportunity to tell them a little bit how to act. And we also did that with the music. Never really giving them exactly what they want with the music, always really challenging them with the music, force them into a little bit of a new pattern of behavior. I mean, we've always had to deal with the craziest shit. And from ambulances to people trying to take us down,
fist fights outside,
the whole shebang, and one of the most important things we've done, I at least personally, we've done recently, is try to turn around gay men's perspective of a gay men's space. For example, putting signs up in bathrooms, making sure that men know that women should get priority because there's only a couple of them probably at the party, and if they cut a woman or were rude to a woman trying to get into a bathroom space, that they need to really check themselves. We're not okay with that, so you shouldn't either. And if you're not okay with something that we're not okay with, plenty of parties for you to go to. Peace the fuck out.
Moving to a different subject, Honey SoundSystem record just released a month ago, Where Are We Going? By Octa Octa, a contemporary artist that happens to be a transgender. But you have also released a compilation of Patrick Cowley, a musician of porn flick soundtracks, which is something very cool. What are the purposes of the label, and what is what you look for when working with these artists?
Well, you kind of have the label aficionados for Honey here. Everybody's worked on the labels, but Robert and I started a label together many years ago, separate from Honey SoundSystem Records, and I think we both kind of have a lot of emotional and political axes to grind with the records that were released, and Robert probably has released the most of his own music, so it's interesting that we're here to answer this question because we have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, we started with Honey Tracks, which was we started off with a compilation called Brotherhood, but it was a mixture of different artists that we were friends with. We were really a lot of people we were close with, and I think what we mostly gravitate is towards our artists who who share our interests, who also are allies, or also queer or gay, straight, whatever. But I think what we're mostly focused on is the quality of the music.
Absolutely.
Because we're not here just putting out a banner for like queer music or
Right.
something, because that already, becomes a
done.
different definition for like what this music is all about.
Right.
It's about universal music. It's about music that, anybody all over the world can play. It doesn't matter who you are, but, we want them to be like classics, like
Right.
classic sounding, so that, they have a long shelf life and, also is very memorable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think,
Which is not easy to do, and we do. Everybody in the crew has an opportunity to pass on tracks, and we all have very different styles of DJing and interests in music and understandings of, the history of music and production. So usually what ends up getting through the filter of all four of us are just that, songs that like, we all feel very strongly and have an emotional relationship to, but also feel like have a life to their own and hopefully a long shelf life.
yeah, and of course it's also relevant to the kind of music we like to play as well. So.
And I think the shift in the labels have been previous. It was more about community, and these days it's like this vagabond travelers. What can we bring in our bag? Because for example, tonight, if we were gonna play music that was even given to us personally, maybe was given us as something possibly for the label, and now it's something very special that we can take with us wherever we go.
So are we having a future release by you guys?
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
But, we're gonna keep it under wraps for now.
Yeah. Yeah, always a secret. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's so
it's
much a secret we don't even know.
I mean, we love a little shock and awe, so.
Yeah, for sure. We're working on, some cool projects this year, but, we're also taking our time because the music industry changes every day, it seems like, and it's important for us to be very strategic with the way that we work with the label because it takes a lot of energy out of us.
This is going to be very corny, but any advice to your Colombian audience, gay, straight, transgender, green, blue, whatever, that is afraid to open themselves and embrace sexuality and freedom?
Well, I think the best way is just to show your personality. It doesn't matter if you're gay, lesbian, or, straight, transgender, queer,
bisexual.
But, really, like, you should be confident in whatever, you are mostly inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
And just put your energy behind that, and people will start recognizing that, and it doesn't really matter who you are in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, a contemporary issue that I think that I'm realizing on the road and with younger people is that the prior examples of what was easy or how to come out, what was accepted, the ways in which people found themselves through like liberation movements and stuff like that, they're not necessarily going to work for you. You might be a specific kind of freak that there's no blueprint for. And you need to just know that, just embrace that. Like the idea that you have friends that are gay and maybe you have friends that are lesbian, but you don't identify with either of them, but you know that you are potentially sexually a freak. You have a world, you have an audience, but in many ways, like you just have to find your way on your own and understand that might be the best way to do it.
What's coming on for Honey SoundSystem for this 2017?
We're still traveling.
Tours,
we have
tours,
some
tours.
gigs in. Next month I'm joining Jason Kende for a gig in Tokyo at a new club called Vent. And then after that, there'll be some European gigs between me and Josh, and also Jacob and Jason. They're playing Love International in Croatia.
Yep.
And then
We'll be throwing some of our own parties.
we'll be
so
throwing some parties.
if you're in San Francisco for Pride Weekend or for Folsom, come find us. We still do our like bank holiday 3-day weekend parties as well. And yeah, there will be some special projects as well.
Yes.
Some physical, some records, some remixes, and hopefully we'll be doing a very, very special book project or two. So keep an eye out for that.